This is a small piece of the desert. So many wonderful and important things happen in the desert with the people of God, God and His people. So we have to have a small piece of it to tell those stories. Now the desert is a strange and wild place. There's very little food and very little water in the desert. People can die in the desert without enough food and water. When the wind comes, it blows the sand, and so the sand is never the same. It moves the sand, and people can get lost in the desert with the shifting sand. The sand also stings the skin when the wind blows hard, so you have to cover up from the tip of your toe to the top of your head to protect yourself not only against the sun but against the stinging sand. It can even take flesh off the bone. But desert can be a dangerous place. People do not go into the desert unless they have a good reason. But the people of God dared to go into the desert because they knew God would be there with them. Today's story takes place in the desert. After the great flood, all the creatures came out of the ark and went in all four directions of the world to fill it up with life again. People began to gather around rivers and other water places. And at first there arose villages and then even cities. One of the greatest and most ancient of those cities was called Ur, in what was then the land of Babylon. Ur was full of gods. There was a god for the rain, for the clouds, for the water, for the wind, for the sun. There was a god for every flower, tree, rock, plant. Ur was alive with gods. But there was one family in Ur that did not believe that. They believed there was one God over everything. They did not yet know this to be true, but that is what they thought. Abraham was the father, and his wife was Sarah, Abram and Sarah. When it came time for Abram and Sarah to move to a new place called Haran, the children and even old people went with them. They took their sheep, camels, and donkeys, and began to travel north towards Haran. At night they pitched their tents and slept, but during the day they followed the great Euphrates River. It showed them the way, and it gave them water, and water for their animals. It was a long journey. It took time. I wondered if they would ever get there. Finally, they met some people coming south out of Haran, and they knew they were almost there. And then they were there. Once in Haran, Abram would often go out to the edge of the desert and look across the sand and into the sky. And one time, God came so close to Abram, and Abram came so close to God, that Abram knew what God wanted him and Sarah to do. They were to move yet another time to a new place. It would be hard to leave their family that they had brought to Haran. But they did as God asked. They took some helpers and their animals, the sheep, the donkeys, their tents, and they went into the desert and traveled west into the land of Canaan. Now they had no river to follow to show them the way, and no water, so they had to look for places where they could rest and find water. They came to a place called Shechem, and there they rested and found water. And Abram climbed a hill and said a prayer of thanks to God. He discovered God was there. And he built an altar of stone to mark the place. And they moved on. Another time they came near a place called Bethel, and again found water and rest. Abram again climbed a hill and said prayers of thanks to God, because he discovered God was there also. Abram and Sarah were discovering that God was not just in Ur and Haran and Shechem and in Bethel, but God was everywhere and in every time. The journey continued in the desert. They came to a place called Hebron. There again, Abram said prayers of thanks. And they decided to stay there and make Hebron their home. They pitched their tents and stayed. One night, Abram was called outside the tent. And when he went out into the desert and looked up at the sky and the stars, he heard God came so close to him that he heard God say, Abram, I'm going to make of you and Sarah a great family. You will have as many descendants as there are stars in the sky and grains of sand in the desert. Abraham laughed and laughed. This promise seemed impossible. They were much too old to have any children, and they had never had any up to this point. But God said, nevertheless, from now on, your name will be changed. Abram, you will be Abraham, father of many. And Sarah, you will be Sarah, mother of many. On another occasion, Abraham now was sitting out at noon waiting for lunch, and he saw three strangers coming up out of the desert toward him. He told Sarah, quickly, prepare a meal, which was the custom in those days, to take care of foreigners and strangers on their travels. So Sarah fed them meat and bread and gave them milk and water to drink. After they had finished eating, the strangers said to Abraham, in the spring, you and Sarah will have a son born. Well, Abraham laughed again. That was impossible. And Sarah, who was standing by the tent post, overheard, and she laughed too. Well, you probably know what happened in the spring. Sarah and Abraham had a boy. And they laughed as loud as they could, this time not with doubt, but with joy. And they called their son Isaac, which in their language means laughter. Now Isaac grew to be a fine young man. And now Sarah, who was old in years, died. And Isaac and Father Abraham buried her in a cave under the oaks of Mamre, where they lived in Hebron. Abraham also was old and full of years, but he had one more thing he had to do. He sent his most trusted helper back to the land of his people, back through the desert, past Bethel and Shechem, back to the land where they had lived and their families still lived in Haran. He stopped at the well just outside the city, and there was a young woman getting water for her father's house. And she gave water to the helper and helped him give water to his animals. She was kind and full of courage. She invited the stranger to come home, as was the custom in those days. And he came home with her. And he told Rebekah and her family about the great family that Sarah and Abraham had begun. Rebekah decided she wanted to be a part of that family. So she went with the helper back through the desert, past Shechem and Bethel. And when they came near to Hebron, Isaac saw them coming and ran to meet them. And he took Rebekah before his father Abraham, and they were married. Now Abraham had done his work, and he died. And Rebekah and Isaac buried him beside Sarah in the cave under the oaks of Mamre. Now in time, Rebekah and Isaac had children, and those children had children, and those children had children. And this went on for thousands and thousands of years, till your grandmothers and your grandfathers had your mothers and your father, and then your mother and your father had you, and now you are part of this great family that's as many as the stars in the sky and the sand in the desert. Now I wonder what you like best about this story. There's no right or wrong answer.